Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, a UK-based Star Wars podcast with in-depth discussions and analysis sprinkled with some silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
I'm Kat Reese-Yelker.
And I'm Jason Hondo Ling.
And we are back with a brand new episode of Star Wars. We are going to be deep dive reviewing the brand new trailer for Andor Season 2, which starts streaming on April 22nd on Disney+. Obviously, the trailer was released on the 24th of February, and it was a pretty crazy trailer. I would say it had lots of Star Wars feels, but it also had some maybe new things to Star Wars, which we'll talk about as well. Let's go to you first, Kat. Obviously, I haven't spoken about Star Wars in a while. How excited for you for the trailer coming, and then sort of how did the trailer deliver for you in your excitement for Andor Season 2?
I've definitely been very excited for Andor Season 2 for a long time now, because I think Andor as an entire series just kept blowing us away with every episode, and it ended on perhaps not like the biggest cliffhanger, but it left us with a lot of questions, and we've been wanting answers to these questions for quite a long while. So I was definitely excited. I was ready for this trailer to drop, and it blew me away. It felt very reminiscent of the season 1 trailer in that it appears to tell you a lot in the trailer, but then when you watch it and rewatch it, you realize that actually is only maybe 3 or 4 episodes worth of footage in the trailer. And it's from the same episodes, just different parts of the episodes woven into this 2-minute trailer. But it's so intense, like the way it goes past so quickly, and there's explosions, there's Cassian in all these different costumes, infiltrating these different Imperial bases, cities. It felt like Star Wars, and it felt like the intensity of Rogue One, because while Andor, as the first season, set up a lot of the story, the intensity and the action that this trailer is hinting at really feels like we're getting to that closer step of the Rogue One storytelling.
Definitely. I definitely agree with a lot of what you had to say there, Kat. Jason, obviously I know you are back with us. Obviously not 100% fully fit though, so we do hope that you're okay. And Jason has some issues with his lungs, shall we say, and he does have some coughs going on. But Jason, obviously how excited for you was the Season 2 trailer coming out, and sort of how did it deliver in your excitement for Andor Season 2?
Well, the one bonus with being stuck at home ill is it gives you a chance to binge watch a bit of Star Wars. So over the time, I have managed to squeeze in Season 1. So that had already whetted my appetite. But seeing the trailer, seeing different parts and different areas that we'd already been told were coming, it gave me a lot of excitement. And obviously, when they released the way that they're going to release the episodes, that made it even more exciting because, as I just said, I like a good binge watch. And although we're not getting, obviously, all of the episodes at once, we're getting them in blocks that I think are going to keep me very happy for the next, or for the 4 weeks that they're going through.
Yeah, definitely. It is, I wouldn't say it's strange the way they're doing it. I suppose it is strange for the streaming world. Usually we either get like a double episode premiere or 2 episodes a week, or we get the whole thing dropped at once, I suppose. But, they have said that, we are going to sort of be getting three episodes every week, which is going to tell sort of each arc, and I think there's going to be like a year's gap in storytelling in between each arc as well, possibly. I think I'm all on board for that. I think one thing, especially when you hear people, when they've talked about, let's take the Acolyte, for example, when it's in it, sort of it went backwards and forwards in time, which I think is a very cool storytelling tool, but for the everyday audience, maybe, can be just jarring for them, where this is going to be, here's your 3-episode arc, and next week here's your next arc, and it should be pretty linear and simple for people to tell. One thing I also picked up on the trailer is that, so there's the fact that we're getting 3 episodes every week, which I feel is there to sort of keep the normal Disney Plus subscribers, not necessarily the Star Wars fans, but the normal Disney Plus subscribers, tuned in and not disjointed. The trailer then also had sort of like lines from some of the praise for season 1 of Andor, which I don't think I've really seen in Star Wars trailers before, certainly not before the product comes out. So again, sort of trying to engage that normal everyday Disney Plus subscriber, not just the Star Wars fans. And then on top of the quotes that were doing praise for the show, there was also obviously the use of an Earth song, shall we say. That sounds really crazy, seeing an Earth song, but yes, sort of The Revolution Starts by Steve Earle is a everyday song here on Earth. It's a real song, not from the Star Wars canon. Using the trailer, we don't know if we're going to hear this in this show or not. I would imagine not. But let's just go to you, Kat, first. What was your thoughts on the trailer where it's used quotes from praise for Andor season 1, which I think is probably a first, maybe, certainly before the product comes out anyway, and then also having, like I said, a non-canon, very real Earth song in Steve Earle, The Revolution Starts Now, for the trailer?
It did feel different to trailers we've had before. I guess it's selling more of the product rather than the story in some ways. Most of the trailers we see for Star Wars just hint at the storyline and introduce the characters we're going to meet in a season rather than trying to sell it as a product. But I mean, I'm not sure why they did this. You'd have to ask the marketing team. But I do think it is calling out just how good Andor season 1 was, from the set designs, the costume designs, the performances of the entire cast, and the storytelling by the writers. And I think having that praise in there is maybe a way to say thank you to all the people it takes to create a season. A season is only as good as the people who make it. And Andor does deserve all of that recognition because it was an incredible series. And I wouldn't be surprised if it did bring in people who hadn't seen Star Wars before, or who hadn't seen much of Star Wars. Maybe they'd only seen the original trilogy and hadn't explored the wider world of Star Wars since then. And if this kind of trailer can bring in more people, it can introduce more fans to Star Wars, then I think it's a clever marketing strategy. Because like, even if you don't want to watch all of Star Wars, you don't want to watch all of Rebels or the Clone Wars, you can still enjoy the experience of Andor, even if you only just know maybe the original trilogy, maybe you've only just seen the original trilogy and Rogue One. You can still enjoy Andor so much, because while it is a Star Wars story, its themes about oppression, rebellion, and the morality of a rebellion are so poignant in everyday culture and society. Andor is a very grounded story. And even though it's set in a galaxy far, far away, even though it's this amazing sci-fi, its story has so many similar beats to things that have happened within society. And I think it's going to resonate with audiences because of that. It is so relatable. And I think the song choice was very clever. I mean, The Revolution Starts Now. It feels like something Cassian Andor would say. It almost feels like a line from Rogue One. And the way the trailer was set around the beats of the song, with some of the explosions set to the chorus, I thought it worked really well. I wouldn't actually be against them putting it somewhere in the series. I think music is a very strong storytelling aspect of Star Wars. If you hear a piece of the Star Wars score, you'll probably know from where in the film or one of the series it's come from, because there are so many musical signatures throughout the Star Wars galaxy, whether it's Rogue One, whether it's The Force Awakens, whether it's Rebels, and adding in a song with that much meaning, like The Revolution Starts Now, I think in an action sequence it could work. I wouldn't be against it.
Do you think the song would go in like as is, or do you think they'd like Star Wars jazz it up, maybe change the music a bit, or change the lyrics to maybe be in a non-English language?
It could definitely work in like a non-English language and have it be like an alien language, but I think you would want to keep the meaning of the song. So I think maybe keep it as the English, but on the backing track, maybe interweave some of the score for Andor through it, and then it sort of becomes a remix in a way.
Definitely. And I think you bang on about sort of Star Wars music being so identifiable, especially for Star Wars fans. You know, I share Spotify with my wife, for example, and sometimes if we put it on sort of recently listened to or like on shuffle, it'll play some, you know, classical Star Wars tracks from throughout all the Star Wars soundtracks. And Louise, my wife, will be like, what on earth's this? And then I can usually within the first 10 seconds can tell her, oh well, actually this is from this scene in this movie. And then sometimes I can also tell the track name, which I suppose is very nerdy, but you know, because like I said, what is happening on screen often goes with the music so well and creates those moments in your mind where as soon as you hear it, it just gives you that cue in your mind to remember that. Jason, let's go to you. Obviously, like I said, the trailer, from my point of view, was different in regards to we had sort of that traditional more of, you know, showing the praise from different publications for Andor season one to sort of bring in the everyday subscriber, I would say, to watch Andor. And then, like I said, we've got this sort of Earth song, which is going to, you know, reminisce with not just Star Wars fans. It's going to reminisce with sort of the general everyday public, the normal Disney Plus subscribers who just happen to like music, I suppose, as opposed to Star Wars. You know, from what I've read, you know, regardless of whatever people think of Skeleton Crew, I heard its viewership wasn't that awesome, and you know, and the viewership hasn't been awesome for a lot of things on Disney Plus, not just Star Wars, Marvel as well, and that's why they're trying to go back to theaters with stuff because that's where the money is. So yeah, Jason, what's your thoughts on this more sort of a traditional trailer as opposed to a Star Wars trailer, should we say?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it because I'm the sort of geeky one that years ago when it was pretty much the cinema, or if you were lucky enough to have a VHS, you had to wait for 6 to 12 months for the VHS to come out. So obviously, part of what was great fun was the traditional trailers that you got in the cinema. This trailer to me not only reminded me almost of the old style cinema trailers, but also almost like a sizzle reel sort of promo piece that would be sent out at like awards times. So when it was like, say, the Emmys or something like that. So I really enjoyed it. I thought the music fitted perfectly. Um, it didn't distract. If anything, it brought something. You sat there and you were like, wow. So, oh, excuse me. So yeah, for me that then sort of made more sense that we could um, see what was going on with this music, and as Kat said, some of it was timed beautifully. So you had the explosions with the beats, and the images were very theatrical. Krennic, Mon Mothma. Um, yeah, it just, to me, it was a piece of artwork which you don't tend to get from trailers these days. Normally they're like, hey, here's a few little bits from the series, come and watch it. And as you say, I think with streaming, it is becoming more and more of a problem because they look at the viewership. But a lot of these, when you look at the amount of content that is on Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, there's so much content. People only have a certain amount of time a week to watch stuff. So obviously, some series, if it's not a big ardent Star Wars fan, then someone might wait, say, 3 or 4 months to watch it. So, are they getting a true idea of what the worth it is to that platform? I don't know how they all work it all out, but it's a difficult thing to gauge. So, I'm hoping, obviously, with Andor, we've got a very clear path. We've got 4 weeks, 3 episodes a week, which excites me because it's almost, we haven't got a trilogy, we've got a quadrology, and each one is in its own little time frame. So I think they've gone very Star Wars with the way they've split it up, and it also means that the audience have more to get out of it than if they had to wait once a week for 12 weeks. So I'm impressed that they've gone down this route. Um, I think it's a good move and could be a way to look at going with other series if they decide to do other series. But who knows with Lucasfilm?
One thing we did see, what you mentioned there, was Krennic. I would say we saw two sides of the unhingedness of the good guys and the bad guys. If you look at Krennic, I think he can be quite an unhinged character, always wanting more and to sort of battle, the top bosses. He wants to be seen in the same light as Moff Tarkin, as a Darth Vader and the Eyes of the Emperor. And he's quite sort of unhinged trying to achieve that. Also, Saw Gerrera, we saw from the Rebel side of it, we know how unhinged he becomes. In Rogue One, Kat, will go to you. Sort of, what was your thoughts on seeing Saw Gerrera and Orson Krennic in this trailer, knowing that we're going to get these guys in this season because we know how important those two characters are to Rogue One?
It's very exciting to have their characters in this second season. And with Saw Gerrera especially, I wonder if we're going to start to see the splitting he has from Mon Mothma's ideology. One of the big sort of moral dilemmas that the rebellion faces is because they're built up from different factions and different rebel cells, they have different views of how to defeat the Empire. And Saul Guerrero is very much a militiaman, guerrilla warfare, and he often comes to blows with Mon Mothma. We know that Mon Mothma she's not exactly a pacifist because she is funding the rebellion, she is actively helping to fight back against the Empire, but she doesn't condone Saw Gerrera's style, for use of a better word, whereas he thinks the ends justify the means. He's not as bothered perhaps by civilian casualties or just destroying things for the sake of destroying things. Mon Mothma is far more targeted. She wants to, I think for a long time, she just wants to expose the Empire. She wants to show that it's rotten from the inside, but could actually be saved and reshaped. And it's only through her plight in the Senate that she realizes it's more or less pointless because most of the Senate are in the imperial pocket, and the few senators who do agree with her simply aren't a majority that could have any kind of political strength against Palpatine. So it will be interesting to see maybe some of that tension come out between these characters, which we do see in Rebels. They have a massive argument, and this is around about the similar time frame. So it will be interesting to see if that happens. As for Krennic, I love Krennic's character. He is one of the most interesting Imperial villains that we've had, in my opinion. And if you've read Catalyst by James Lucchino, which is the prequel to Rogue One, it really delves into sort of Krennic's thinking, his desire for power within the Empire, and his ruthlessness. Krennic is far more ruthless than the snippets, perhaps in Rogue One, actually suggest. In Catalyst, he is very ruthless. He will do whatever it takes to get the funding for the Death Star, to make sure that he's in charge of the Death Star. It's his obsession in a way. And I'm interested because it's pretty clear from the trailer he's getting to meet Mon Mothma at one point. And their interaction, I am fascinated by how he is going to interact with her, because the Empire are suspicious of Mon Mothma. We saw that in season 1, and I'm just wondering if that's what Krennic is there for, is if he's dressed up as if he's there for a social visit, but perhaps underneath it's more subterfuge, and he's there sort of interrogating her, but in a socially acceptable manner.
Indeed, as if he's just probing to see what's going on.
I mean, I'm all for Mon Mothma, just pinning it all on Perrin and the ISB leading him off.
We will see. I think for me, when we talk about Saw Gerrera, I think Forrest Whitaker clearly loves playing the character. And his scenes with Luthen in season 1 were very gripping. And I'm very excited to see what Saw does in season 2. Because I think the Saw we see in Rogue One is very much the man at the end of his journey. And I think we've still got a little bit of that journey to go. And we're going to see that in this season. Jason, what's your thoughts on, I suppose, Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera and Ben Mendelsohn as Krennic, and sort of the two sides of the same coin, I suppose, and you look at sort of the unhinged, will do whatever it takes to get things done side of the coin of the Empire and the Rebellion.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward again to seeing this sort of dynamic play out. Forrest Whitaker and Saul Guerrera, um, uh, he's just brilliant in that role, and he's an amazing actor. And seeing that character, that side of what is becoming the rebellion, and seeing how as Kat said, how different he is to Mon Mothma, I think juxtaposes the story there, which is perfect. And then obviously with Krennic, he's a character that obviously we saw only bits of really of what he was all about. I haven't read the Catalyst book, and it's one I keep meaning to have a look at. But he's a character that I think further exploration is always good, and that's something that I think we're going to see here. And obviously, seeing him interact with um, Mon Mothma, who at that time is obviously a senator, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I should think those two will bat heads, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. And obviously, Mon Mothma has proven to be an amazing character. So to see that play out on screen, I'm really looking forward to. And likewise, the return of Luthien is another character that I think this is going to play out, because obviously he's also got a very different perspective on how the rebellion works, which we saw towards the end of season one. So I think we're going to see more of the power plays that are going on there, which I'm really looking forward to.
Something else we see in the trailer is potentially the debut of something called the Tie one's, I've lost the name of it. The Tie Avenger, which to me looks very similar to maybe an early prototype to what becomes the Tie Silencer we see Kylo Ren have in the sequel trilogy. But before we talk about that, it looks like that Tie Avenger does get sort of set onto the Empire itself. Obviously, we don't see these in the original trilogy, so I'm thinking that this Tie Avenger we see in the trailer could be a prototype or testing thing. There's also been a leak of like a Cassian Andor figure for Season 2 Black Series, which is a CNR test pilot. So it's Cassian dressed up as a CNR test pilot. So obviously CNR design systems are sort of a subsidiary of the Intergalactic Banking Clan, and they do have locations on Absance and Lothal. Do we think that maybe this is Cassian breaking into sort of an Imperial facility and, looking to steal this TIE fighter, this TIE Avenger? And also, I would love to hear your thoughts, Kat, on how this ship resonates with perhaps some of the ships we've seen Kylo Ren fly in the sequel trilogy.
Absolutely. The TIE Avenger is a beautiful TIE fighter. It seems very reminiscent of the TIE Interceptors, just a bit sleeker and slightly different on the fuselage. But I really, that scene where Cassian is clearly stealing it just resonated with me because it reminded me completely of Finn and Poe stealing the TIE fighter from the hangar at the start of The Force Awakens. It seemed very similar, especially with the way Cassian is sort of circling it and shooting at all the stormtroopers to try and get out of the hangar. And if the figure is for a test pilot, then this could easily be another Imperial project that has a lot of potential but gets sidelined, either to fund the Death Star, because we know Krennic was fighting with Thrawn for more funding for the Death Star compared to the TIE fighter fleets. And this could maybe be another design that got swept under the intergalactic rug to fund the Death Star, which is then why perhaps we don't see it in the original trilogy, and then a similar design gets resurfaced and repurposed for the First Order because the First Order seem much more concerned with, rather than like big weapons. Yes, they have Starkiller Base, but their TIE fighters are actually fit for purpose. They have shields, they have hyperdrives, they have hyperspace tracking. They actually update those TIE fighters almost as much as iPhones, the First Order. So they care for them way more than the Empire did. Empire, like the most basic TIE fighters. So it's nice to have these kind of progressions of connecting every era of Star Wars visually. Yes, things progress. Yes, things are maybe streamlined, but the essence of a ship is still there. Very much like how the Z95 headhunters are still very reminiscent of X-Wings later on. And yeah, I was wondering if the hangar is actually on Lothal, because we do see a lot of wheat fields, or the Star Wars version of wheat, in the trailer, and it does seem to be where Cassian is flying this TIE Avenger. So another TIE like development factory on the Lothal could be completely possible. if that's the case, it would be really exciting to see more Lothal in live action, because we only got a glimpse of it during the Ahsoka series.
Indeed, it would be fantastic to see Lothal. Jason, what's your thoughts on the TIE Avenger, and obviously how it ties into, pardon the pun there, as Kat said, the TIE Interceptors that we see in the Jedi, but also, the TIE craft that we see Kylo Ren fly later on in the Star Wars saga. And also, what's your thoughts generally on the spaceships we see in this trailer?
Yeah, for me, seeing the ties, I've obviously seen the figure as well of Andor in the flight suit, which straight away made me think, right, at one point they're going to try stealing one of these things, which is always a great, good heist adventure in a series like Andor's perfect. Um, I For me, I've been reading different bits, and obviously I've seen the links with Lothal, and there's a lot of rumours going around and excitement, which, being a huge Rebels fan, I would absolutely love. Is that obviously if Cassian ends up going to Lothal on a mission, is he going to end up hooking up with a certain group of rebels that we already know quite well? Um, and there's been obviously one of the things was perfect to see another little snippet of a live action Zeb. So I love the idea, but I love that it's all stuff that could happen that we're all thinking about, because that's one of the things I love with Star Wars is it allows you to use your imagination. But the only problem is at times then when you don't get what you were hoping for, it's a little bit disappointing. So I try not to get overexcited about everything. But yeah, seeing the ships and different battles going on in the trailer, um, and obviously the Death Star, it was like, yeah, this is going to be a big adventure. And as I've said previously, the 4 weeks with 3 episodes a week, it feels almost like we're going to be getting four separate little films. So I think the ships are going to play a big part, and the fact that we get to see a slightly different tie that maybe they have to sort of reassess once the rebels have got hold of could be a lot of fun.
It certainly could be, and I think it certainly will be. Something I picked up on is that we see some X-wings taking off. The shot's like an interior hallway, and it looks out exterior-wise onto sort of the rest of the base. We see X-wings taking off. So these X-wings have the same paintwork, I believe, as Saw Gerrera's Freedom Fighters, in my opinion. And the base looks very much like it could be Dakar, which is the Resistance base from The Force Awakens and the very beginning of The Last Jedi. We do know Leia tries to use her sort of old Rebel intel to use bases. So we'll go to you, Kat. What's your thoughts on these X-Wings taking off and the paintwork on them? Do you think it could be Saw Gerrera's Freedom Fighters? And do you think it does match up with Dakar? In which case, do we think that maybe Dakar was originally a Saw Gerrera base?
That would be really cool, but I actually thought it was Dantooine. The base, I don't know, the jungle there did look like it could be Dantooine, and if it was being evacuated, it would kind of tie into why Leia then sells out the Dantooine base in A New Hope, but that could be me reaching. If it was Dakar, that would be, again, a great way to tie all these different eras together and have it be a historical rebel base that Leia then reused for the Resistance because she knew about it. I think what it does hint at is whatever this base is, the Empire doesn't know about it yet. And I mean, Saw Gerrera's bases were well hidden. They only just found him on Jeddah, and that was more to do with Jyn Erso than anything else. And yeah, the paint on those X-wings It's hard to tell in the lighting, but it could be Saw Gerrera's. But at this time in the galaxy, we also know that not all of the rebel cells are gathered on Yavin 4 as one complete unit. So there are other cells that are sort of disorganized and spread across the galaxy. Again, it's one of those things, it's a little hint, it's there to make us question and speculate. But from that really brief scene, it's hard to tell who or where it is.
It is indeed. I think, if I remember correctly from reading about the car, it was originally linked, said it was a rebel base, but it was quickly abandoned by the rebellion, I believe. Now, this base here in the trailer, which I think could be the car, does look like it's under the control of Saw and his partisans, judging by those X-Wings, is my thing. Obviously, it looks like we're definitely going to see some rebel or partisan bases. We also definitely see Cassian on Yavin 4, which is obviously the main rebel base from the original trilogy, especially the first movie. Jason, what's your thoughts on the rebel bases we see? Are you happy to see Yavin 4? And I suppose, what's your thoughts on that other base, which I think could be Dakar, or it could be Dantooine, or it could be, it's open to interpretation, shall we say?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of this series is that there's the potential of revisiting old bases, but there's also the potential of visiting new bases and new parts of the story that we've not seen before. Um, Everyone loves to see a good rebel base and the gathering forces ready to strike out against the Empire. So yeah, obviously, I think obviously Yavin 4 ties in very closely to Rogue One, so I think it's a no-brainer that that's going to be there. And then obviously, if this is Jakar, then great, we get an exploration of more things that we've been looking for. I'm just really looking forward to exploring how this rebellion is building, and I think that's part of the excitement of it all is seeing the way it's been set up. As I said earlier, we can clearly see that different members of the rebellion have different ideas of how it should be handled, and that's going to play out, I think, big time. Seeing fractures within the rebellion, and seeing obviously how it heads towards what we then get in A New Hope. But whenever I see an X-wing take off, that's just perfect film for me.
We also see, so there's sort of a brief clip of sort of Imperial troops. So they're not stormtroopers, they're not wearing helmets. Looks like a mix between stormtrooper gear and maybe like infantry gear. And also some of them in the back look like they're wearing sort of ISB tunics maybe underneath. Some of them aren't. I don't know if you know the clip I'm talking about, Kat. I think we see about 5 troopers sort
Yes,
of in
I
a
do know
hallway.
the clip.
I don't know if you've got any thoughts on those guys and what they could be doing.
Something tells me they could be another faction within like the ISB. Only because of that officer at the back. That officer is definitely wearing an ISB uniform with the white tunic. And these commandos, Imperial commandos, because I'm not quite sure what that armor is either, they look like they are more specialized than regular stormtroopers, but not as specialist as death troopers. So maybe they're in the league in between somebody who the ISB can use to find people high on their wanted list, I'm thinking, because it does seem to be that the corridor they're marching down is the same corridor that Cassian is going down just a bit earlier in the trailer. So if they are after Cassian, which the Empire definitely is, he is on their wanted list, then you'd want to send troops who are a bit better than stormtroopers. And commandos would make sense for that kind of purpose of they're more specialized, don't need to be taking orders as regularly from a higher ranking officer, and have the capacity to apprehend a criminal rather than just take someone out, because the whole point of the spies within the rebellion is they know a lot, and the ISB want to they want that information, so they'd want to capture Cassian alive if possible to be able to interrogate him. But yeah, I don't know who those troopers are going to be, but I can absolutely guarantee there's going to be Black Series figures of them.
There is indeed. They look pretty awesome, so I can't wait to spend money on those because they'll have new molds as well. Some of the gauntlets look a bit like, on some of them, because no one of them looks the same, but some of the gauntlets look like they may be Mandalorian-esque, like on the wrists. But time will tell, I suppose. I mean, we do know that there was sort of those Mandalorian Imperial commandos who appeared in the episodes of Rebels, and who, if you watch The Mandalorian, for example, Moff Gideon certainly has some of those as well. There's a pretty iconic shot of Krennic in front. He's obviously on a Star Destroyer bridge. He's looking out at the Death Star. Death Star is obviously less advanced than it is in Rogue One, which makes sense in the timeline. I suppose, Krennic's one side of a coin with Galen Erso as well. Now, obviously, we don't see Galen in this trailer. No, we're not going to give everything away in the trailer. But, Jason, do you think that we will see Galen Erso? I feel it could be possible because, we're seeing the Death Star, we're seeing Krennic here. These things are linked together, and the Death Star plans are very much don't exist without Galen Erso. So do you think we will see Galen Erso, or do you think maybe we won't see him, but he'll just be heavily involved sort of in the background?
I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I would love to see Galen, but I can also see how, with the way the story progresses, it would be possible to just purely mention him and not show him in a particular scene. But it's hard to tell with the way the series is going whether they would necessarily go that route. Obviously, the other issue is Mads Mikkelsen is quite an in-demand actor these days and has been. But would he come back? I think he possibly would. And if the scenes were right, then I think it's a possibility.
We see sort of, I think we've already mentioned, so we've mentioned Mon Mothma, we've mentioned Krennic, we've mentioned Saw Gerrera. These are sort of returning characters that we've seen in the trailer. Another one we see in the trailer is K2SO. Kat, what's your thoughts on us finally getting to see K2SO and possibly seeing the beginning of the friendship, the very unique team that Cassian and K2SO have when we meet them in Rogue One?
I think everyone knows that I want K2 as my sidekick as a droid. He would be my first choice. So I am here for every bit of K2SO, all of his content. If that is not K2SO and it's actually just a KX droid cameo, I am going to be devastated. But hopefully that is K2. And I'm wondering if the season is going to give us that initial meeting between Cassian and K2 and how he comes to reprogram this Imperial security droid into the sassy sidekick that he is in Rogue One. I just love K2 because he is the humor that Rogue One needed. Rogue One is a dark, devastating film, and it would be even darker without K2's running commentary. So if he can sprinkle in just a little bit of humor into Andor Season 2, I am absolutely here for every minute of it.
Jason, what's your thoughts on the return of K2SO? I know you do love a cheeky droid.
Uh, I think it's a no brainer that it's going to be K2SO at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if it's week 2 or week 3 we see as part of the arc, um, and or finding meeting K2SO and reprogramming. Um, when this series was originally sort of mooted at Celebration, they had Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk on stage saying that the pair were coming back. Now I think with season 1, possibly Alan Tudyk's um, schedules didn't quite match up, and it wasn't quite what the story needed. But I think there was always the intention that with season 2 and the fact that they knew where it was going, part of the story had to be them meeting and the way this relationship grew. And I don't think you'd be able to do that in just, say, a few episodes at the end of the series, say week 4. So I think week 2 or 3, we're going to see the introduction and the relationship building. Well, that's what I'm hoping for anyway. And yeah, I've said several times about K2SO and how much I love him. And obviously, I know for a fact that, what was it, 2 years ago when we were up at Celebration, K2SO was only there for one day because he had a prior filming engagement. And I think we all know what they were filming at the time. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's going to be in this series, and we're going to get to see how that progresses.
Is indeed very, very interesting. I think we've spoken about everybody we've seen on screen in the trailer. Is there anything in the trailer we haven't discussed that you want to discuss, Kat?
Well, I did kind of want to touch upon Mon Mothma because we do see her quite a few times in this trailer, and she does seem to be partying at one point, which I'm wondering if this is the fruition of the marriage deal she made in season 1 of her daughter with the crime lord's son. And if you look closely at that party scene where she appears to be dancing with a huge crowd of people, I don't know, Momothma just looks very sad in that moment. And I'm just wondering if it's because she's realized one of the only ways to fund the rebellion and to bring peace to the galaxy is at the sacrifice of her own family.
Yes, quite possibly. That scene did seem, I wouldn't say weird, but I definitely got some vibes that like things were happening there that she certainly didn't like, and what you said there would certainly fit that. We also see there's like a quick shot of Mon Mothma sort of in the Senate. It's very quick, so we don't know what's being said. Do you think we'll see Mothma maybe go head to head with Palpatine in conversation in the Senate, or do you think that would be too on the nose?
I'm not sure if she'd go head to head with Palpatine because I honestly don't know how much Palpatine even bothers to visit the Senate. But I could see a Mazameda cameo, and maybe Mon Mothma is calling out another atrocity of the Empire and possibly arguing with Mazameda or another staunch Imperial senator.
Enter the bureaucrats, as they say. Jason, what's your thoughts on Mon Mothma on the party, but also do you think we'll see her getting sort of down and ruthless in the Senate itself?
Yeah, the party, like yourself and Kat, that was my exact feeling. I felt that there was something wrong with Mon Mothma and the partying going on. I thought it had to be a throwback to obviously what had happened with her needing to get the money, and this crime lord offering marriage to his son for her daughter for that money. I think that fits perfectly with the story, And I think that's why that was introduced in season one. So yeah, that was my feeling on that. The Senate bit, I was sort of thinking they could show Palpatine, but as Kat says, at this time, Palpatine's sort of leaving the bureaucrats to fight it out, and he's just using all of his governors and moffs to rule everything with an iron fist, um, whilst the bureaucrats just argue when they really have no power to make any sort of decision. So I don't think we're going to see Palpatine. Mazameda yet, possibly because he's like the second, and it would be, perfect sort of framing for everything. So yeah, I can only really agree with Kat on that, but it's I have to admit I would like to see a bit more of what's going on in the Senate and a few more of the senators, maybe some of the senators that we've previously seen in animation suddenly appear here as real life characters.
Yep. And is there anything in the trailer you want to talk about that we haven't discussed yet, Jason?
No, I think I've got about everything there. Obviously, the other ones that you've got Deirdre briefly seen there. Obviously, we've got more of her story going to come back into it. So she's a character that I'm quite looking forward to see where she's going to go after what occurred in season one. Um, and that's more that, there's still that side of the story to go in the ISB. And I suspect she's going to bump heads with Krennic as well.
That was going to be my next question, and we'll go to you with it first, Kat. Obviously, with the arrival of Krennic as sort of a top tier imperial, shall we say? Do you think he's going to be here and someone like Deidre Miro, who was the main baddie, I suppose, the main ISB focal point in season one, will be benched and will be quite upset about it, or do you think they will butt heads, or do you think they're going to be on the same team?
That's an interesting combination of Deidre and Krennic. I'm I'm not sure if I could even call that. She is very competent throughout Andor season one. She was doing a lot more work than some of the other ISB agents. And I think Krennic would recognize that, but Krennic is also very controlling. That's the whole reason him and Tarkin don't get along in Rogue One, is because it's all about who gets to control the Death Star. I I don't see her getting benched as a character though, because Deidre is the one who is looking for Cassian. Cyril was the one looking for Cassian, and that's got to continue. So, if anything, maybe Krennic would let her have a command team to go after him, but with the caveat that if she fails, she is no longer an ISB officer. It's literally her job is on the line.
And obviously, you've just mentioned there, obviously, my short-term memory is completely gone. Yeah, the other male character who comes in on Hunt and Cassian. What did you say his name was again? Sorry, Kat.
Cyril.
So that's the one, Cyril. Yep. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. From season one, from watching sort of Cyril and Deidre together, I got the impression that like there was definitely some chemistry there between them. In my opinion, I thought possibly a domineering relationship towards her being a dominant one. Do you think we'll see that continue in the second season? Do you think those vibes are completely wrong? Sort of, what's your thoughts on that, and will we see these two come together as some sort of, not a power couple as such, but a couple who are going to have quite a bit to say in this story?
No, I never got chemistry from those two characters. Yes, they share a scene at the finale of season one where Cyril and Deidre, he saves her, and they have this moment where she does thank him for saving her life. But emotions are high at that point. She's just gone through a very life-threatening, scary experience. Cyril's just done something for once in his life that's quite heroic. And I think they're both just in shock in that moment. I never got romantic vibes from them, mainly because of Deidre's stance. In the Empire, she is a woman. She is trying to get power, and I don't think she would ever risk her profession to a relationship. In the Empire, people can be used against you, and even her relationship status could be used against her. Again, it resonates with things, with problems in real life society, and I think that was Deidre's character arc a lot in season 1. Is she is fighting for her place in a male dominated profession within the ISB. She's one of the only women at the round table meetings, and she is trying to get men to listen to her. So I don't think her and Cyril could ever be a thing. I'm not saying that they won't work together, because it does look like Cyril's suit. He is definitely not living with his mum anymore. I think he's actually got a well-paying job at this point, and he may even be working for the Empire. So the two could work together, but I think it would just be a totally working professional relationship.
Because I get the impression that Cyril will do whatever Deidre says, so therefore couldn't he be doing sort of side jobs with her, I suppose, if they are hunting down Cassian. Jason, I don't know what your thoughts are on, obviously, as Kat said there, Deidre does a lot of the work with Cyril as well, hunting down Cassian in season 1. I think as soon as the Death Star plans become involved, or mention of the Death Star becomes involved, or, is nearly at risk, obviously that's when we see the arrival of Krennic, I imagine, looking to take care of the situation. I don't know what your thoughts are, Jason, on sort of the dynamic which could be between sort of Krennic and then what came before him in the form of Deidre and Cyril.
Yeah, obviously, Krennic, I think he's going to come into it towards the end, and very much being, right, what have you not been up to? This is more important than you. We've got to protect this. With Cyril and Deirdre, I agree with Kat. Apart from that one bit at the end, it was very much Deirdre looked down at him, and I definitely don't think romance was ever in her mind. I think maybe, um, sorry, I think maybe he looked at, she looked at him differently after he saved her, and basically looked at, okay, this guy could actually help me, and I think that's what we're going to see in season 2. Um, I think what we will then maybe go into is, I think he will be working for Deirdre, and I don't know if you noticed, there was one little snippet of his rather domineering mother, um, almost laughing like a maniac. And I wonder if he finally stands up to her more because of Deirdre.
Could quite possibly. It's certainly going to be interesting to see what comes in the upcoming season. I've got a couple of questions I want to shout out to you guys. Go to you first, Kat. Do you think we're going to see any Bothan spies in season 2?
Quite possibly.
Jason, any Bothan spies in season 2? Do you like some?
Um, I don't know. I suspect they're going to appear at some point.
Quite possibly. I think they could. Or if they don't, if we might not see them, it might get mentioned, I think. Something else, I suppose, that is sort of left over from season 1 is the whole mystery of Cassian's sister. That's very much how the story starts out. That's how we first meet Cassian, as he's looking for information on his sister. That's how he gets into trouble in the first place, when he kills those evil men who were being nasty. And then we sort of see the flashback. We see him and his sister as children. Kat, do you think we will ever find out what happened to Cassian's sister in season 2?
If we do find out, I think it's going to be a sad ending.
Star Wars is tragedy, as they say. Jason, what's your thoughts? Do you think we will get the answers to what happened to Cassian's sister?
I think that's going to be one of the revelations at some point, definitely.
That brings an end to sort of everything I had to say about the trailer. I suppose just over to you, Kat, again. Is there anything about the trailer or season 2 in general that you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I think we've covered everything that trailer gave us, which, as I mentioned earlier, isn't a lot. Yes, there's lots of action, but it's really only hinting at, I think, a few episodes at most. So I'm just excited to see where these different story arcs are going to take us. Yes, it's leading up to Rogue One, but there's plenty of storytelling in between, and I'm just really excited to have Andor back on screen and seeing Cassian now as a truly dedicated member of the Rebel Alliance.
Yes, he is indeed. We're going to see him on Yavin 4, which definitely means he certainly has clearance now. Jason, anything about the trailer or anything Cassian Andor Season 2 that you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
No, I think other than I'm really looking forward to it. Look forward to what surprises they're bound to spring on us, and obviously looking forward to it, exploring it with you guys when we finally get to see it.
No, it's very, very exciting times. I thought the trailer was it was quite tense. It was a fast pace, it was in your face. Things were happening like a bang of a drum continuously. I'm quite excited by the sort of 3 episodes every week for 4 weeks to get the 12 episodes in, and each 3 episodes being an arc. I can see maybe the likes of Orson Krennic being sort of teased at the end of one arc and then being part of the next. So whether that's sort of from arc 1 to arc 2, once sort of the Death Star becomes involved. Only time will tell, I suppose, but we've only got till April to wait. Obviously, it's the beginning of March now, 2nd of March as we record this. So yeah, a very, very exciting time indeed. As I said, Andor Season 2 starts streaming on April 22nd on Disney+, and for 4 weeks after that we will get episodes, which is absolutely fantastic. Kat, any final messages? Anything you want to plug before we wrap things up?
I'll only just shout out my latest articles in Vlogs magazine, where we are talking about the latest Star Wars Lego, reviewing it. And right now, I've also got a great debate column. So if you ever want to know what I'm debating about the Lego world, whether that's Star Wars minifigures and more, just check out Vlogs magazine.
We will certainly check that out. I think I also read a review of a Kylo Ren comic book that you might have done in the last month. Is that right, on JediNews.com?
I did. I am currently reviewing the Legacy of Vader comic series by Charles Soule, which is releasing every month, and I am reviewing them for JediNews.com. They have completely taken over my life. I've only the first comic is out, and I am fully obsessed already just from that first story line. If you love Kylo Ren, if you love General Hux, if you love the First Order, if you love the sequel trilogy, you have got to pick up these comics.
I have not picked mine up yet, but obviously our friend Ian, who sometimes comes on the show, was talking to me about it, and it does sound absolutely awesome. And I sort of half glanced over your review because I didn't want to spoil it too much, but yes, it looks very, very exciting. Jason, have you got any closing thoughts or anything you want to plug before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think you know what's coming here. I've got to plug the fact that last weekend, although I still wasn't 100%, I made a quick day trip to Jedi Archives down in Dorchester, and we did a very special thing. We had a group of the Mando Mercs, Fokchi clan, visit for the day, and we put on a bit of a armor party as one of their foundlings. And the guys kindly got me started on my journey to becoming a Mando OM. So there was a lot of work done. I cannot thank the guys for the guidance that they're giving me. The aim is that over the next couple of months, we're going to be building my armor, which the guys are very kindly helping me with, and then I will go through the app process so that hopefully I will be doing my first troop at Dorchester Strikes Back in August, which I'm hoping over the next month I will be able to make some rather exciting announcements. So stay tuned, because Dorchester Strikes Back is definitely coming back, and we have a lot of exciting stuff planned.
Very, very exciting times indeed, and we are indeed staying tuned to see what is announced. Very exciting times. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. Listeners, thank you very, very much for listening. You can follow the podcast on social media. We're on Twitter at BorsStar, but we are also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere else at Star Bors Podcast. If you're listening on Apple Music or on Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star review. A lovely little sentence, keeps us smiling all week, only takes you a few moments, and again helps people find the show. And if you are listening on any of the other wonderful podcast applications out there is a lot now, all of them wonderful, I am certain, and it has a feature to review the podcast. Again, just leave us a top review, all of the stars, and a nice little sentence. Again, keeps us smiling all week, only takes you a few moments. And if you are doing that and you are leaving reviews, take a screenshot, send it to us on social media, and we might just send you some goodies in the post. But thank you very much for joining me, and may the force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.